Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Fair Life with Andrew McKee. And great to see you. Let's see, Kurt and Jan and Kathy and Kevin and Damaris and Alicia's here. Woohoo! Yeah, actually here. Uh, I appreciate that. That's great. Uh, I know she's feeling under the weather, so thanks for making it. And yeah, it is. It's a bit crazy. I mean, maybe you can notice behind me, but you'll notice there's not a bed behind me because I don't have a bed anymore. I'm sleeping on an air mattress, and all that is stone wall back there. My room's mostly fairly empty. I'm still going through things and getting rid of a bunch and purging, and I will be I'll be moving out completely and heading out in a week on Monday. So yeah, as a little aside, there won't be a Fair Life next Monday or probably the Monday after that because that'll be Dragon Con, and I don't think I'm going to have a chance to. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to have a chance to do anything about that. So, and hey, Dan and Janine, hey, thanks for joining. Um, and yes, good to see you from Colorado. And yeah, that is. Thanks for joining during the DNC, the Democratic National Convention. So, all of us somewhat political people who will just catch the highlights later, because let's be honest, most of it's hyperbole anyway. So, we'll just find out what happened later. Right. Ooh, that's bad. Sorry to hear that, Janine. Yeah, hope you feel better. And hey, April, thanks for joining. And Sarit, hey. Wow, okay. So I guess a lot of people wondering if I'm going to make it on time and leave without uh, uh, crying in a corner in a week, because yes, it's still a lot to do. Still a lot to do. After tonight's show, I'm going to be taking down all the lights and the speakers and everything I have up here, and my whole desk setup will be completely gone by the time I go to sleep tonight. So I left it. I left this for last, mainly just because of the show, and I figured I could do it that night. So that's why I did it this way. uh, oh wow, really? We're gonna start the betting pool as far as when Andrew starts crying in the corner. You know, you're not wrong. Crying gets the sad out of you, according to NFL Hall of Famer Rosie Greer. Yes, that is. It's important. It is important. Wow. Okay. Yeah. It is. Sometimes it's better just to kind of get the highlights later. That's really. Uh, yeah. I mean, it's for me. The conventions always seemed a little too cultish for my taste, to be honest. But I still want to know what happens, so I'll definitely check it out later tomorrow and find out the gist. Lovingly, yeah. Okay. Well, I'll I'll keep you updated. I mean, one thing am determined to try to do now, especially since I'm going to be on the road, is starting this week. I'm going to do at least one weekly post on my Patreon. I've been really slacking off on that, so um, probably do the this week's tomorrow. I think, most likely tomorrow. But yeah, that's try to do at least one a week. I'm going to go for two. I figure on off weeks where not much is going on, I might just do one, and then if there's a lot going on, like a fair on the weekend, and then or other gigs going on, I'll do more too. But that's my current plan for Patreon going forward. Starting this week, I'm going to be a lot more dedicated to it, and it should be easy to go into the habit because I'll always be traveling. So I start fresh with new habits now. Everything's new. Ah, yes, yes. Sometimes you fall into that trap, like you say. I completely understand. Never easy, never easy. You're not wrong, but I think especially considering the amount of travel I'm looking at doing in for the next year, and as much booking as I can get away with, it makes sense. Sometimes I was always hesitant to post because I just felt like I don't really have much that's anybody be interested in to say. It just seemed kind of silly. I was, and I realized that's all internal. I mean, probably there would be some interesting stuff, but it just seemed like I was doing the same thing week after week after week and kind of tedious. But now that's not going to be the case. Every day will be, well, every week will be different probably for the most part. There'll be a few redundancies, but that's easy to fill. So yeah, I think Patreon will be a lot easier from now on. So with this whole situation, that's at least one good thing that came out of it. So always good. Right. And that is important. So yeah, yeah. In a couple of weeks, I'll definitely be uh, talking more about the Patreon on shows. But uh, I think my current plan is to like do at least one, maybe two a week posts on Patreon, and do like a little mini update per week on Facebook. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. I do not tweet. Twitter, I am never been a fan of, and it's only gotten worse because of who the, the politics involved there now. Uh, fair enough. Fair enough. Well, yeah, I was thinking recently about uh, well, I was coming back from North Dakota, from the North Dakota Ren Fair. Guess what, a month ago, a month and a half ago, and that was pretty interesting because I was pushing through straight North Dakota, Fargo, North Dakota, straight to Austin, one go. Left early in the morning and made it happen, and it worked. I got in late, but I got in. I finished the audiobook I was listening to. If you're curious, it was How Music Got Free. It's a nonfiction book by Stephen Witt. It's essentially about the history of digital music and how Fraunhofer came up with MP3s, and then AAC, and then how Napster came about, and people started copying music and sharing it online, and Kazaa, and Steve Jobs and Apple iTunes, and it just that whole sort of concept with some interesting interviews that nobody else had ever got. So it's an interesting book. They just made a miniseries documentary about it on, I think, HBO as well. So I checked that out, and it was really good. But at the end of the drive, I still had a few more hours, and I was trying to push through. And when that happens, I go to my dedicated "This Will Keep Me Awake" audiobook, and that was The Martian, read by R.C. Bray. Does such a good job. It never fails to keep me awake. So I did that, and I kind of started thinking about the whole solo person traveling, trying to figure out problems and going on the road. And yeah, I mean, certainly it's a bit of a stretch to think that my life is like Mark Watney traveling on Mars trying to stay alive, but I could definitely empathize a little bit. And it kind of crossed my mind that this is going to be a drastic change, being on the road like this to this level. Definitely, definitely interesting. Right, it is. It's a good book. If it's a little technical, but not too bad. Um, but I realized something. I first moved into this house back in June of 1997. I've been here a long time. And I did the math, and it suddenly hit me. I've lived here almost as long, like 1 year shy of the length of time Robinson Crusoe was stranded on the island. And then, of course, that started getting me back to The Martian and thinking, oh, yeah, so much was based on Robinson Crusoe. I mean, and a lot of books and movies and TV shows. That, like, books wise, it'd be like Treasure Island or Gulliver's Travels or Swiss Family Robinson, all of which I read as a kid. And for television shows like Gilligan's Island, I mean, certainly had a little bit of inspiration from Robinson Crusoe. I mean, the theme song, no phone, no lights, no motor car, not a single luxury, like Robinson Crusoe, it's primitive as can be. So yeah, very little bit of influence. And movies like Castaway and well, often forgotten but surprisingly decent sci-fi film from the 60s, Robinson Crusoe on Mars. So anyway, I was just thinking about the book and it kind of hit me. I've actually never read Robinson Crusoe. I've seen the movie, but I've never read it. So that's my next audiobook. I'm going to listen to Robinson Crusoe on my way to DragonCon. So little trivia there. But yeah, yeah. Right? Project Hail Mary, from the same author who did the Andy Weir, who did the Martian, and that was really good. Artemis, his second book, was okay. I don't think it was. I don't think it's as bad as some reviews have labeled it. And the audiobook is especially good because it was read by Rosario Dawson, who is such an underrated actor. She's amazing. So did a great job with it and made it at least a few steps better than what the book was because of the audiobook. So I think I got a little spoiled because the audiobook, I think because of her, is better than the book. Just saying. But yeah, that wasn't bad. Project Hail Mary is, yeah, very good, and they're about to make a movie out of that. I think they've already started filming a month or two ago. But yeah, Project Hail Mary will be a movie, and I think it's got a release date of like early 2026 or something. So something to look out for. Yeah. So yeah, that should be fun. Lost in Space, definitely another good example. Television and a movie. Definitely. Definitely was a little bit of that, and that whole concept of being stranded and trying to figure out problems and solve the basic necessities of food and water and power, energy for them, just fuel to travel. Oh, well, that's cool. I did not know that. Oh, well, that's cool. I did not know that either. Yeah, I've always thought she seemed really really cool, and I've never met her, but just in the interviews and everything I've heard about her, seemed like a really cool person and very talented. So I hope that's true. I hope that's true. But yeah, anyway, so that's sort of what I'm going to do. Of course, for the audiobook and everything, but that's not going to get me all the way to Atlanta. It won't. It's not that long of a book. It was written in 1719, and it was one of the early versions, early books of realistic fiction as a genre, and it inspired so many other things. But it's only about, I think, around 8 to 10 hours as an audiobook, and yeah, and I'm probably going to speed it up like I normally do through software, so it's closer to 8 or 7. So yeah, that's going to be a thing. So what do I do the rest of the time? And sort of my go-to when in doubt was always to do Ready Player One, because when I started going back to DragonCon after a couple of year hiatus in 2013, I went ahead and listened to that audiobook, and it was so good. I really liked it. So much so, there was about 30 minutes left when I got into Atlanta. And after I unpacked everything, I stood out in the hall in the hotel just to finish the audiobook before the convention because I had to at least hear the end. So yeah, that was really good. Now, some people don't like Ready Player One. The movie certainly bothered me a lot, and it has its issues. But I really think it tends to be given an unfair bit of criticism. Well, Will Wheaton read the audiobook, and of course, his voice is perfect for doing the persona of a 17 or 18-year-old boy with a level of immaturity. Worked great. I mean, maybe typecasting, but hey, that worked. So definitely believable, and he is a good actor, so I think it worked well. Okay, City of Brass. I'll check that out. No, actually, I get my audiobooks through a lot of different sources, and I like having. I don't really like. You don't always have access. I mean, sometimes you get bad signal, or sometimes you. I mean, I've been on the road for so long. I'm always hesitant about that. It's a lot better than it used to be, but it used to be pretty bad with just whatever internet access or Even satellite access sometimes has its issues. So I would always prefer to just have copies. Um, Digital copies are fine, but I'd want them on a USB drive. So I'd always tend to download them. Well, yeah. No, it wasn't my first year back after the Brobdingnagian Bards. I'd been gone for a couple of years. I think 2011 and 2012 I wasn't there. I believe I was there in 2010 and maybe 2009 too, something like that. So it was only, I think, like 2 years that I wasn't there uh, in that time. But yeah, that's. But I did go back, and it was a fun time. I remember it well. Yes, that's true. You know, you're not wrong. I've thought about that, and there are some really good books out there, especially related to the Renaissance or medieval times, that it wouldn't be hard to do a good series of books. That, I mean, the list just off the top of my head would go several years without even really thinking about it. So I don't know. I mean, would a book club be something y'all would like? Oh, Ready Player One? If you're talking about that, the movie, it was an okay movie, but I really despised what they changed. If you look at it in a vacuum and apart from the book, it's not a bad movie. It's not great, but it's not a bad movie. It's kind of that movie that's fun, but it's not anything you really care to rewatch. But it's good, um, which is a little weird for a Spielberg film. Normally those are kind of classics, and I don't think it's that. But it's just most of the things I liked most about the book, they took away and changed, and that really bugged me. I mean, I'm fine with condensing, but changing, you better have a good reason, and they changed most of it, uh, and some of it for the better, certainly, but definitely was a problem. Oh, Endurance, Shackleton's Voyage. Yeah, that could be good. Definitely goes with my whole travel motif, so I like that. Hmm. Yeah, that's a long one. Okay, I'll check that out too. Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm familiar with the Outlander series, but I'd never thought about it as an audiobook, honestly. Probably should. Um, okay, I'll definitely check that out too. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, we talk about books. You know how we are. Well, that'd be the problem. I mean, Janine, I mean, generally what we'd probably do is each month we'd have a different book, and then we'd get together and talk about it. Um, just kind of share thoughts, and we could do it online through chat or just forums. We wouldn't necessarily have to do it through a visual medium or vocal medium like this, but I mean, we could do some stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do it, um, but yeah, yeah, it would probably be a monthly thing, but you'd have plenty of warning. It wouldn't be like, oh, you need to read this within a week. I mean, you'd have the list for the year well in advance, and each month we'd do a different book. I know you pretty much have your own book club, don't you? I totally agree with that, Dan. And like I said, a condensing made sense, uh, but changing, like I said, you better have a good reason. And I agree, some of it wouldn't have worked on screen too well, but they changed every reference I liked. Like every single like they like to joke about the book and the movie of being just a long list of pop culture references. Well, the main pop culture references, probably the top 8 or so in the book, they changed all of them. And that was weird. Why all of them? I mean, I can get a few, like 2 or 3 licensing problems, whatever, but they changed them all. And the things they picked, while some of them were kind of interesting, they didn't really mean much to me. It wasn't it didn't reflect my childhood. I mean, the reason I liked the book was a lot of the references were from the 80s when I was a kid. Um, but for instance, in the movie, they talk about the movie The Shining as opposed to the other movies they talked about in the book. I didn't watch The Shining when I was 5. Did not happen. I didn't watch that until I was much older. We're talking going into the 90s at least. And that's so it just doesn't really have that childhood nostalgia that the rest did. So it was an interesting, weird choice, considering. That's my take on it, anyway. Yeah, you're right. You're not wrong. And I mean, of course, we can do it where people can jump in and out. You don't have to do every single one, so that's workable. Yeah, I just meant like you're reading books on your own. That's kind of where that's what I was joking about. I should have been clear about that. Um, I don't see any missed frames. Everything looks fine. Try resetting, April, because yeah, I don't. The video seems okay. Um, yeah. No, I think no. Oh yeah, just try refreshing. Anyway, it's already 7:23, so shouldn't be a problem. All the frames seem fine on my end. It's a decent bit rate. I am sending it out. Oh, really? Huh. Audio sync, and that's normal? Hmm. Seems like it fits. Well, I'll that's something I'll work on. I'm going to have a very different setup here in the future. This is the last time I'm going to have this setup, so there should be some changes and hopefully some optimizations. Here's hoping. So anyway, let's jump over to the Faire map and see what we have. Certainly a lot more fairs this this week, and a lot of one weekend fairs. I think what we're having is well, there a lot of the smaller fairs they try to get in before the big fairs start on September 1st, around Labor Day weekend. So the weekend before that is popular for the one weekend fairs, so they don't compete with those larger fairs. So you'll see a lot of those, and I think that's a lot of what's going on because you're seeing a lot of those one weekend fairs. So here you go. Let's jump full and go ahead and get the whole. Yeah, yeah, I think this is gonna work. And yay, there we go. Woohoo, woohoo. Okay, so starting off we have the New York Renaissance Fair in Tuxedo Park, New York. This is the second out of 8 weekends, so it's still just getting going. And it is Marketplace weekend. Very odd theme. Sounds like just saying shopping weekend. I mean, okay, a little redundant, but hey, you go with it, I guess. Going over, you have one of those, that first one weekend fair I was talking about, Upstate Renaissance Fair in Norwich, New York, this Saturday and Sunday. Then going down to Pennsylvania, we have the Pennsylvania Renaissance Fair, again, the second weekend out of 11 in Mannheim, Pennsylvania. And their theme is interesting too, the pirate invasion. They're spelling pirate with a Y instead of an I. Very odd. They did it on purpose, but the only reference I can find to it is just a bad spelling of pirate. It's not really used, so somebody thought it looked good, I guess. Very strange, but never boring. Jumping over to the Fellowship of the Pines fair in Brockway, Pennsylvania. This is a 3-day weekend fair, Friday through Sunday. Now, this is a little different. It's technically kind of a LARP event. What they're doing is they're trying to merge conventions, Ren fairs, and LARPs and try to make it as interactive as they can, where you go in and you follow this particular path of going and doing all of these adventures and hearing a show and seeing this. And it's kind of like a very scheduled way to do an event. Um, but it has a certain interactive story-based quality to it that some fairs have started to do, and of course Disney has started to do with some of their events. So trying to make it interactive. I'm not sure. This was one I was tempted to take off the list, but it's you know we'll it's starting to become a trend, so I'm gonna hold it there for now, and since it's only one weekend, and we'll see how that progresses. But it might be a trend that catches on. Going down, we have the Pittsburgh Renaissance Festival. This is the first out of 6 weekends in West Newton, Pennsylvania, and it is opening weekend celebration or Celtic weekend. Jumping over to Maryland, we have the Maryland Renaissance Festival, first weekend out of 9 there in Annapolis, and it is Children's Weekend. Then down in Virginia, we have the Wolfswood Fair in Appomattox, Virginia, and it's only one day on Saturday. So, yeah, one of those smaller fairs that's been going on. Okay, then we go over to Michigan. We have the Michigan Renaissance Festival in Holly, Michigan. This is the second out of 7 weekends, and the theme is Highland Fling. And oh, okay, Alatia's in Maryland, so yeah, something to check out. If you're going to be there, definitely say hello. And then we go to the Michiana Renaissance Festival in South Bend, Indiana, just one weekend. Then going over to the penultimate weekend at Bristol for the Bristol Renaissance Fair in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Weekend 8 out of 9. And then over to Minnesota, we have the Minnesota Renaissance Festival, weekend 2 out of 7. A lot of weekend 2s for the big fairs that started last weekend. In Shakopee, Minnesota, and the theme is Bold North Adventure. That's a new one. Okay, cool. And this is kind of interesting. Jumping down to Nebraska, we have 2 fairs near each other. One is the Nebraska Renaissance Fair and Medieval Pageant in Elkhorn, Nebraska, one weekend only. And fairly close is the Midwest Pirate Fest in Papillon, Nebraska. They're both kind of near Omaha. The Nebraska Ren Fair is kind of northwest of Omaha. The Pirate Fest is kind of south of Omaha, but they're still pretty close to each other. They're both old fairs. I mean, the Ren Fair started in 03 and the Pirate Fest started in 08. So they've been around for a while. I'm wondering if they might have just accidentally fallen on the same weekend this year, kind of thing, which happens sometimes. And by the time they realized it, it was kind of too late. So they ran with it. I'm not sure. I don't know if they're always on the same weekend, but it's a very weird scheduling approach if it is. So I'm wondering if it might just be one of those coincidences. Then going up to Canada, we have the Strathmore Medieval Fair and Artisan Market in Strathmore, Alberta. And this is a 3-day weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I looked, Friday is not a Canadian holiday, but they're doing it anyway. It's, I guess, a summer thing. Then, and yes, Janine, Papillon is butterfly. Yes, it is. That is French for butterfly, and it is spelled the exact same. I'm saying it with the French pronunciation. It might very well be different in America. It might be Papillon, Nebraska or something. But yeah, I'm not sure if that's how they pronounce it there. I went with the French pronunciation, or attempted to. I know I'm probably butchered it horribly, but I tried. Jumping down to Utah, we have the Utah Renaissance Fair in Star, Utah. Now this is kind of weird. It's on Friday and Saturday only. So it's a 2-day, but not Sunday. And at first I was like, is this a typo? Let me check. And then I realized that, it's a Mormon thing. It's right in the middle of Mormon country, and they don't do anything on Sunday. And I checked. Sure enough, no alcohol, no smoking, no vaping allowed, and it is very much a Mormon Ren Fair. So something to keep in mind if you're wanting to go to a Ren Fair to celebrate your vices. Night might not work out. So just an FYI. Jumping over to Washington State, we have the Camelin Harvest Festival in Carnation, Washington. This is, again, one weekend only, Saturday, Sunday. And then down in California, we have the Valhalla Renaissance Fair. Again, believe it or not, one weekend only in South Lake Tahoe, California. And there we go. Woo! There. Oh, oh, really? Had cousins who lived there. Is that how you pronounce it, Alicia? Papillon? Okay, so that's okay. Well, great. That makes me feel better. Yeah, I mean, interestingly enough, I've been to a few fairs that don't serve alcohol, and sometimes those can be really fun. You're not wrong. It's a very different dynamic, and um, I mean, I don't think the fair has anything to do with religion directly. I think they're just kind of following the rules. But but yeah, I mean, it's just having a dry fair is it is a different dynamic, a different feel, and you get different people there, and sometimes that can be kind of cool. So definitely worth checking out. Oh, did I skip New Mexico? Oh, I totally skipped New Mexico. Good call, Kurt. Good eyes, good eyes. Okay, hold on. Yeah. So, totally skipped New Mexico. I'm okay. I was in a rush. Okay, so here we go. Right over here. In fact, I'm just going to give it a little extra bonus. Boom. There. Okay. Right there. We have um yeah, I didn't know I could draw on this, did you? Uh we have the oh well, gosh, where is it? Um okay, there's this. The Pirate Viking Summer Festival in Edgewood, New Mexico. Also one weekend only. So it's a Pirate Viking Summer Festival. A very interesting combination of things. They it looks like they're kind of trying to be a little bit of everything. But yeah, for one weekend, a bit of fun in the late summer. So there you go. Whew. Good catch. Thank you for that. I would have felt bad if I'd missed that. Yeah, you're not wrong. And that is one of the problems with being a musician when you have like a bunch of people smoking at pubs. Oh, it's used to be a horrible problem. It still can be, but it's not as bad as it used to be. And it's tough to get really start singing and really get that out there while, you know, tons of smoke smell. And then, of course, if you're at a pub or playing music and then you drive home, everything smells like smoke afterwards. All your equipment, your instruments, your clothes, it's not fun. Not fun at all. Ah, yeah, you're that it is it's one of those habits I think that people get into. Right, that's one of the examples that had that. I know New Jersey was like that for a while when they were first started going. They were a dry fair. And I heard that it went very that some people really liked it. Of course, it emphasizes the whole family aspect a bit to go that route. But I mean, there's a lot more to it than that. It just has a different feel, um, and you know, I'm not going to say better or worse necessarily. It's just different, and that's really why you go to different fairs to kind of have stuff that's familiar, but also experience something new. Right, because of the campus. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. You'd have to. There are some. I understand those rules. Yeah, that can be rough. So, yeah, I believe it. Right. I'm not allergic exactly, but it's always bothered me. Smoke. I mean, it really. I'd say it's more like just an irritation that I've never really gotten over since I was as young as I can remember. I mean, just old, long time ago. So yeah, it's always been a thing for me too. Well, you know, that's why I don't normally. It's only for those special events when I really mess up and Kurt reminds me. That's the only time I'm allowed to do that, so don't worry. Right, and that's always a problem too. If you're asthmatic, it's really that can be a problem. I mean, there's several things dealing with allergies, asthma. I mean, they yeah, Yeah, I remember when I first started wearing contact lenses, it really hit me hard, and it became a very tough for me to deal with. Right. A lot of fairs kind of went that route because smoking and fair were so linked for so long. It was really hard to just stop it when some of those laws about no smoking started being enacted in some of the cities. So it really, I kind of get it because there are people that really like doing that, and giving it up is not easy. So the designated areas, okay, but it's still, it can be rough. It can. Well, it's 7:37, so I should probably call it here. Just as a reminder, I'm not going to have a show. I think I think in events on Facebook they're technically still up, but I'll bring them down tonight for next weekend and the weekend after probably. Go ahead and just take those down because there's no way I'm going to be able to do a show. I just don't see it. Hopefully the weekend after that, but don't worry, I'll still post on Facebook and be a lot more active on Patreon. So we still have that. But wish me luck. I'm going to keep packing and throwing away, most of my history and past, and just getting rid of all of that. And it's been surreal and therapeutic. But yeah, it's most of my furniture is gone, and it's been interesting. But yeah, it's not going to be boring, and I will keep you updated. So it sounds good, and it is going to be an adventure regardless. So I will see you in, I guess, a few weeks, and have a lot of news about my travels, leaving Austin, and Dragon Con, of course, and everything that's going on after that. Yeah, and hopefully I'll have some good updates in the next few weeks about my schedule next year, which I'm currently starting to work on booking and getting all that figured out. So we'll have a little more info on that. Take care. Have a wondrous time. And remember, it doesn't have to be just me. You too can have a fair life. So I'll see you soon. Bye.